here. I would like to thank Ben for those songs you picked out, very appropriate. Also, thank you, Dan, for reading the scripture reading as well. I saw that I had the closing prayer today, so I asked Elliot. I said, "Well, I'm doing two things today, so could you please do the sermon for me today?" I'll keep the. All joking aside, he's going to be doing the closing prayer. I want to thank all of our visitors that are here today. So good to see all of y'all. Y'all of our honored guests. And if you would, please stick around so we can get to know you. Also, so good to see all the members here. I love each and every one of y'all. And I hope y'all are having a great morning. So, I guess first things first, let's see if I can work this. All right, success. Today I want to speak on something that is done often in the summer. Here we are in the summer, in the hot, and everybody likes to move. I don't know why in the summer, because it's probably weather-wise the worst time. It's something that everybody usually does in their life at least once, and it's very stressful. Of course, I'm talking about moving or traveling or even vacationing. Most people, psychologists and websites dealing with stress, recognize moving as a top 5 or at least a top 10 stressful life event. If you've ever moved, you know why. But you've never moved. One of the obvious reasons for it being stressful is you have to change location. You have to figure out your new area. You get into a new home. You have a new layout. The sock drawer does not go there anymore. The silverware drawer is over here. It's very confusing, and you have to learn your new home. Your job might be further away, which can be stressful because now you have a longer commute to work. Moving further away from home from your family can be stressful. You've lost that support. And I kind of jokingly put moving closer to your family up there. But in a different aspect, some of us have to move closer to home. I've had a supervisor. She retired. She moved closer to home because her mother was getting older in age and she needed a caretaker. And that can be very stressful as well. Saying goodbye to friends and neighbors, always a sad thing to do. Having to find new support, doctors, mechanics, grocery store. Thank goodness we moved to Texas. Y'all have HEB. This place is great. I was wondering why everybody was talking about HEB being so great until I moved here. And of course, literally the worst, packing and unpacking. I mean, can you think of a worse thing to do? I cannot. There are some times when we thought about moving, I would volunteer to pack and unpack friends, so I would not want to move. Making new friends. I asked my kids what was so stressful about the move, and they said that I have to make new friends. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I don't have any friends, so no problem for me. We had to give away some things. We didn't have enough space, and also financially speaking, the more things you have, the more expensive it is to move. Finding a new place to worship can be a little stressful at the beginning because you want to make sure you're going to go to a place that is doing it God's way and following his pattern. Also, financially speaking, moving, we found out very expensive. Not fun on that aspect as well. And ultimately, there's the fear of the unknown. When we get there, is this going to be a good move? Is this going to be a bad move? Are we going to regret it? So there's that as well. So this sermon is mainly inspired by my family's move here to Austin 3 years ago this month, June 2021. We moved here. I think we arrived June 22nd, something like that. Jenny and we had already moved around quite a bit. When we first got married, we moved here from San Antonio to Montgomery in my 1-bedroom apartment, and then immediately moved from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom apartment. And right after that, I got orders for Charleston, and we had to move there. While this was all happening, we just got baptized. We just got established in the church, and we were just now learning God's way. So I went to my supervisor in the Air Force who guided us into God's church and said, would you please help me find a church in Charleston? So we found the one. We showed up at the one that he recommended to trying off. They took us out to get ice cream, and the rest was history. Um, when we got to Charleston, we moved from base housing into our first house, and we still had not had kids yet. This all happened in our first basically 2 years of marriage. So a lot of that was kind of happening fast, but we were young, we were thriving, we had no kids, and we were all kind of starting off. So it didn't seem so bad. Also, this most recent move here, um, yeah, other reasons why this was difficult to move here to Austin compared to those early moves was we were being financed by the Air Force. They paid for everything. They sent movers to pack and unpack for us, and I thought that was kind of cool to watch them do it. Jenny was getting very stressed out watching them, which I understand. We were young there then. Now we're settled, we're old, and we're grumpy. We don't like to move. Um, we had never moved with kids before. We hadn't moved out of our very first house. It was the only house our kids ever knew. We had been at Ashley Heights Church of Christ at 15 years at that point. There was a brother, Cookie, who took us, who basically helped us know God's word. He came over to our house. We grew up with that family. All of our kids grew up with their kids, so that was very hard to move from them. We were leaving our church family behind. Also, we had to move with 4 cats. 2 thumbs down. Do not recommend doing that. Don't ever give your cats a Cavapin, by the way. We had to find new jobs. Before, the Air Force already had a job for me. This time we had to do that as well. That too was stressful. 2021 pandemic, the housing market was crazy. It was so hard to find a house. We couldn't do it. We had a trouble getting an apartment, and then to add on top of all of that, the first moving company misquoted us. The second moving didn't even show up, and then the third moving company showed up because of our sister Kathy Miller in the church that we were at. 2 days later, after we were already here, she's the one who oversaw our move. That was not fun, and I feel very sorry that she had to go through that, but we love her very much. So with all of that aside, this sermon is kind of a celebration for my family that we're here. It's a testimony for how God takes good care of us. We're here, not just here in this place, but we're here in all aspects of life because of God's guidance, because He loves us, and we feel at home here because of each and every one of you. We've gotten to know you, and again, we love you guys. Hoping that this is an inspiration for people who might be thinking of moving away. Please don't do that. And people who might be moving in, or if you're taking a vacation this summer, or traveling, or you're thinking spiritually of your journey in life. I would like to take a look at 3 people who were traveling through the Bible while they went along their way. Abram, who of course became Abraham, Noah, and also Moses with the Israelites. Just a disclaimer though, before we get into the Bible, not saying that anybody when they move is going to go through a flood or be chased by enemies or will be provided manna while they travel. This is a lesson to show that God is with His people during our various journeys. Got it divided in 3 sections, and the first is God is with you when you prepare to move. We're going to start off by reading in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 9, and this is speaking on Abram. Most of what we're going to be reading today will be in the Old Testament. Most of it will be in Genesis. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem as far as to the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were then in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord, who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west, and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. What I would like to point out in this section is the fact that Abram, he was 75 years old. We could be moving or journeying at any point in our life. Also, the other thing I would like to point out in verse 7 is Abram paid his respect to God by building an altar. We should be grateful as we journey as well. Now let's go to Noah in Genesis chapter 6. Starting off in verse 13. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And going down to verse 17, it says, and behold, I myself am bringing floodwaters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. In this section, I would like to point out we might have to prepare to move because of unfavorable news, but we should always keep in mind that God is with us. And speaking of preparation, the last section I would like to read is about Moses and the Israelites in Exodus chapter 33. I'll be reading from verses 1 through 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, depart and go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your descendants I will give it. And I will send my angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, and the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in your midst, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. And when the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. I would like to point out in this section that God sent an angel before them, and he told them that he was going to drive out all these different people, and that they were going to go to a land flowing with milk and honey, and they considered this bad news. One of the things that we should do as we journey is we should travel with a good attitude when we prepare to move, not complaining. I can't imagine getting all this good news and them just focusing on the bad and complaining. That's something that we're being given, because I think we can all be guilty of that. So God is with us when we prepare to move. God is also with us while we're during the process of moving. God was with Abram while he was in Egypt. I don't want to read this section for time purposes, but he entered into Egypt with his wife Sarai, and he says to his wife, they're going to kill me and let you live. Say you're my sister. Of course, he's doing this because Sarai is a very beautiful wife. He's come up with this weird plan that's going to keep him from getting murdered. Pharaoh finds out how beautiful she is. Eventually, she enters into his palace, and then God curses Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh later approaches Abram and is like, "Why didn't you tell me this was your wife?" And then had her leave with him. So one of the things I noticed when reading this section was Abram was kind of taking matters into his own hand. He didn't stop to pray or to consult God. We had our theme last year over prayer. It's something that we should do in all aspects of life. If anybody has had to do any stressful thing in their life, including moving, it always goes way better and a lot smoother if you're praying. Let's go next to Noah in the middle of his journey. It says in Genesis chapter 7 in verses 1 through 6, excuse me. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. You shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 each of animals that are unclean, a male and his female. Also 7 each of the birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of the earth. For after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made." And Noah did according to all the Lord had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the earth, both man and cattle, creeping thing, and bird of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. The thing I would like to point out here is in verse 5. And Noah did all according to all that the Lord had commanded him. While we journey in life, we should be obedient to God, and he will definitely be with you during hard times. Next, I would like to look at, again, the Moses and the Israelites. This will be in Exodus chapter 13. Verses 17 through 22. Then it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, "Lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war, and return to Egypt." So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, "God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you." Down in verse 20, so they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night before the people. I would like to point out, when we are on our journey in life, that God is working in ways that we don't understand. He's working and doing things that we cannot see. I don't think that they understood at the time what God was doing for them. He led them around the way. He led them by a pillar of fire, and also by a pillar of cloud and fire by the night. These things he did and directly for them, but also he was doing things behind the scenes. So we may not understand what we're going through or what's happening on our journey, but God is definitely working for us in mysterious ways sometimes. In Exodus chapter 16, a couple of chapters down, in verse 1 through 5, it says, "And they journeyed from Elim And all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall be on the 6th day they shall prepare what they bring, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." We shouldn't complain. God is directly providing for these people, and they just do not see the blessing in it. As we journey along our way, we need to count our blessing. Lastly, I would like to point out in Deuteronomy 31, verses 1 through 8. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I would like to point out this is Moses getting word that he's not going to be able to cross over into the promised land. In verse 3, it says the Lord God himself crosses over before you. And in verse 6, it says, "Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, nor be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you." Moses, as we know, did not get to enter the promised land, but God did walk before him, and God did walk with him, and he did guide him along the way. There are many other instances we could read about Moses and the Israelites. For example, in Exodus 14, the Red Sea was parted for them. And if you read in Numbers 33, there's a document of all their moves in the wilderness, which is quite a bit. If you want to read that for your own encouragement. God was with all these people while they were traveling, and he is with us as well. Finally, I would like to discuss that God is with us when we arrive to where we're going. Abram, or Abraham again, and we'll read in Genesis chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. Then Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold, and he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, from Bethel to Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And down in verse 14 it says, "And the Lord said to Abram, after Lot has separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see I give you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you." Verse 18, "Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord." A thing I would like to point out here is in verse 18, which we just read. Abram remained thankful through this whole process. He built an altar to the Lord after this was done. We should stop after we go through our journeys in life and remember to thank God in prayer as well. I don't want to read for time purposes Noah's arrival in Genesis chapter 8, but we all know what happened. He arrived. He arrived safely. What a magnificent thing to have gone through, to seen the whole world flooded and still be alive. I just wanted to point out Noah was faithful, and he never doubted God, and he remained obedient to him. That's something that we should consider as Finally, I would like to read about Moses and the Israelites in Deuteronomy chapter 34 and verses 1 through 4. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which is across from Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zor. Then the Lord said to him, This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have caused you to see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there. While we travel, while we journey, things may not go as we planned it to be. Our plans may not be God's plan. So we should not be discouraged by that. There are many other people. I just wrote these down without even thinking about it. Paul, we could have done a whole lesson on him. Jesus, of course, Joseph, Jonah traveled reluctantly. Jacob, Joshua, Timothy, Lot was with Abram as well. Daniel, David had to travel in the wilderness. Barnabas. I'm sure there's probably other people that I didn't think of off the top of my head and that you are thinking of. The Bible is rich with people who traveled, and God was with all these people. God is with us while we journey. God is with us no matter what the circumstances are. Spiritually, we are all traveling through this earth. None of us are going to stay here. David recognizes this in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 14 through 15. It says, Yet my people and I cannot give you anything because everything is a gift from you, and we have only given back what is yours already. You know, O Lord, that we pass through life like exiles and strangers, as our ancestors did. Our days are like a passing shadow, and we cannot escape death. David was recognized that we are all traveling through this life and that we need God's direction. Psalm 32, verse 8 says, The Lord says, I will teach you the way you should go. I will instruct you and advise you. We should be seeking God's instruction. In Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, which Dan read, it says, Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. So whether you are traveling this summer or you're just spiritually traveling this summer, God will direct you as long as you acknowledge him. Today, we are all traveling through this life. We should, of course, be seeking to follow Jesus so we can make it home to God. In John chapter 14, verses 1 through 4, it says, Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. That's my lesson for this morning. Again, we're all, if we're not literally traveling, we're all spiritually traveling. We should acknowledge God and his instruction, and we should follow Jesus. If anybody is like to be a Christian or seeking knowledge, we encourage you to come at this time. I'm in the way.